Hey, Scott here at Big Woods Bucks. Today I'm cooking backstraps, so everybody's excited in my house. I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips for making killer backstraps. It's going to make you hungry. Let's get to it. When it comes to cooking backstraps, timing is very important. It's only going to take maybe 10-15 minutes once you start cooking this thing for it to be done. So it's a really good idea to get the rest of your meal all set and prepped and pretty much cooked and ready before you put the meat on the heat. Tonight I'm cooking some potatoes, carrots, and string beans, and I've just got them heating up in a pan here. They'll be ready to go as soon as the meat's done. So the first thing you want to consider is meat care and meat prep. That's everything you do from when you pull the trigger to when you're putting the meat in the freezer or putting it on your plate. So definitely, once you get your deer, you want to get it field dressed out pretty quick. And keep that incision small if you got a long drag ahead of you, because you don't want a lot of dirt and mud getting inside the body cavity. That's going to spoil the meat. If you do end up getting it dirty, you want to rinse it off, get it nice and clean before you hang it. Aging your deer is going to be the next best thing to help it out. It's a thing a lot of people skip because they don't have the means, but if you can hang it in camp, temperatures are 45 degrees and below, you're going to be in good shape. If you have a walk-in cooler, that's obviously the best case scenario, but most of us don't have that. What I do, I took an old refrigerator and just put some meat hooks in it and outfitted it with some racks, and I'll quarter my deer and put it in there and let it sit there for a week or sometimes 2, and that really helps tenderize and add some flavor to the meat. Pro tip with the back straps, because you don't want those getting dried out, is you can wrap them in some saran wrap, some plastic wrap, just to keep that dry skin from forming right on the meat, because then you end up wasting that precious backstrap when you have to trim that crust off the meat. But yeah, keep it clean, get it cold, keep it cold, age it if you can. As far as trimming the meat goes, definitely want to get that silver skin off the top of the backstrap, and you trim away as much connective tissue as you can, but it's okay to leave some. You don't want to go too crazy and take a bunch of meat off. But this is how I like my backstraps to look. Nice, clean, red piece of meat that goes in the freezer, and then when you take it out and start to cook it, you've got something that's pretty much ready for the plate. Okay, tip number 2, fat and salt are delicious. Fat plus salt plus meat equals awesomeness. Maybe you knew this already, but there's a couple key things about that when it comes to venison. Number 1, with the fat, you don't have to be shy. Venison is so lean, you can go crazy with butter and oils and injection marinades if you want, and add a lot of juiciness to the meat without even coming close to what like a nicely marbled piece of beef steak is. So go nuts with the fat. It's going to make it taste really good. When it comes to salt, though, the key is do not put salt on the meat until after it's cooked. And that's because salt draws out the moisture. That's what adds that juicy flavor in your mouth. But if you put salt on as like a dry rub, or while it's marinating, or while it's cooking, it's going to pull the moisture out of the meat before you get to taste it. So the key with venison is to keep all the salt and salty rubs off the meat until after it's cooked. Tonight, what I'm doing is a dry rub made of cumin, garlic powder, black pepper, some paprika, and some brown sugar. No salt, not yet. Tip number 3 is heat. High heat is key when it comes to venison, and that partially has to do with it being so lean. But what you want to do is, if you're grilling it like I am, you want to get that grill as hot as it can get with a lot of preheating. If you're using a cast iron pan, also get that thing smoking hot. And the reason for the cast iron pan is it has a lot of mass to it. With a thinner pan, when you put that meat in it, it actually is going to cool down the pan significantly enough that you're not going to get that good sear on the meat like you want. So get your cast iron super hot, get your grill super hot. You want to sear the juices inside the meat. You're also trying to get caramelization, almost burning the outside of the meat, and that's actually going to convert some of that meat into a sugary, crusty meat that's going to taste really good. So that's what you want, is high heat. If you're cooking with butter, you got to be careful, because the butter will burn before the meat caramelizes, and it'll add that brownish layer to the outside of the meat, but the meat hasn't actually caramelized. So butter is something you might want to add at the end. I like to use a high smoke point oil, like a peanut oil, in the cast iron pan, and I'll even coat the meat with some peanut oil before I put it on the grill, just to help it caramelize and sear on the outside. Tip number 4 is timing. I mentioned before, it only takes maybe 10-15 minutes to cook a backstrap, maybe 4 to 6 minutes per side. It varies. It depends on the thickness of the meat and how hot your grill or your pan is. What you really want to do is get used to poking the meat while it's cooking and get a feel for the firmness, and that correlates to how done it is. And there are some tricks where you can use like the meat of your hand to judge it, but you just got to get good at judging the meat. Go ahead and poke it while it's still raw and see how that feels. And as it cooks, you can keep poking it on the grill or in the pan. And what you don't want is for it to not have any give to it or any squish to it. You want rare, not raw, not well done with backstrap. So if you're unsure, just err on the side of it being undercooked. I don't like to use a thermometer because you'll see when you poke a cooking piece of backstrap with a thermometer, when you pull it out, a lot of juice will come pouring right out of that hole that you just made with the thermometer. And that's also a heat channel now for heat to get directly into the center of the meat. Maybe it's like a finicky thing with me, but I like to just be able to feel the meat with the tongs and judge if it's done or not. If it's not done to your liking, you don't have to put it back on the grill, back on the heat. You can slice it in 1/2 inch thick chunks and go ahead and sear those slices in a super hot pan or back on the grill if you want, just to finish them off that way. If it's overcooked, it's not the end of the world. You can thin slice it, add some good sauce. It's still gonna be delicious. You just didn't need to use a backstrap to get that final product. So make a mental note for next time to take it off a little bit sooner. And finally, the key to killer backstraps is to let the meat rest. You only have to give it maybe 5 minutes. And this is something a lot of people skip, but it does have a big impact on redistributing the juices. The key is you don't want to let it cool down too much. So I just put it on a plate. You want to get it off the heat because you don't want to add any more heat to the meat. But you want to preserve as much meat as you can inside, and it actually will keep cooking the meat. So I just loosely wrap it with tin foil, and it's going to start redistributing the juices inside the meat. You will have some of the juices come out of the meat. You can save those and pour it back on top of the sliced pieces later. But letting your meat rest for 5 minutes or so, you're going to see it really adds a lot of juiciness and flavor. So that's it. When you slice into it, it should look kind of like this. Nice and pink or reddish on the inside with some red juice coming out as you cut. Now you can go ahead and add your salty seasoning, your seasoned salt or salt directly on top of the meat there. You can pour that sauce back on top if you have any of that to add that moisture back in. Plate it with your side dishes and enjoy. You've got yourself some killer backstraps. I hope you found this helpful. Good luck out there in the big woods, and we'll see you next time.